get all these guys in.
Lights, camera, action.
Correspond with being moved to the blue
long, coming up in 9.5 years.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? It's so good to be back. We're in week 2 of the power of a made-up story. And last weekend, I just thought Joel's teaching was incredible. What a vision for us to be the kind of people who go after the one, who go after lost things, because that's what Jesus does. And he began, and he started teaching us a word, a Hebrew word that I absolutely love, Haggadah, which literally means storytelling with a point. This was a rabbinic tool. Rabbis would use Haggadah when they told a story because the story must serve a point. But a rabbi would do something in their stories. They wanted to disrupt you. They didn't want to keep you safe. They didn't want you, after you heard a story, to stay in a familiar place. They wanted to disrupt you, and they did this through tension, and they did this through character development. So every time you read one of the 30-plus parables that Jesus teaches, you should feel disrupted. You should kind of put that story and look in your life and go, okay, am I living this point out? And in the characters that Jesus unpacks, which character am I in this story? So today, I'm gonna teach you a familiar parable, one we've all heard. But here's my hope. My hope is that you will hear this with ancient Near East eyes. I'm hoping that you will suspend your belief that you know what this story is actually about, and you would step back as if you were there when Jesus was sharing the story for the first time, because I believe that we have absolutely missed the Haggadah when it comes to this story. We've missed the point. And by missing the point, we've literally missed what Jesus was trying to teach us and those that were in the first hearers of this story many, many centuries ago. So I am gonna try and disrupt you. But before I disrupt you, I wanna butter you up. And so how I'm gonna do this, because today we're gonna be talking about ranking things and how we rank things. I've lived here for a little less than 2 years, and I'm coming to understand Phoenix life and what it means to be, I think it's a Phoenician. I'm figuring it out. I'm not saying I've got it down, but I'm realizing that there are these teams that many of you love. And if you're online, I'm gonna have you like literally kind of tell me in the chat which team you actually think is best. And if you're in the room, you're gonna be able to, by applause, tell me what team you think is best. And just remember, if you boo, it actually counts as volume. You know what I mean? So the 9 a.m. was like, boo! And they were so loud that the wrong team won. So true fans of the Cardinals, this is the best team in Arizona. Wow. Kyler Murray, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I believe in you. Now, let's go to Arizona Wildcats. Boo. That's so good. That's exactly what happened at the 9. I'm sorry. All right, let's go to Arizona State, Sun Devils. Okay. Did you know? I used the old logo, but there was a man who was actually working for Walt Disney. Walt Disney fired him. Then Arizona State asks him to create a logo of a Sun Devil. So who does he create his logo to be in the image and likeness of? Walt Disney. True story. You can Google it. Now, Arizona Coyotes. Hockey town over here. Well done. Arizona Diamondbacks. Spring training begins. All right. Phoenix Suns. Oh my goodness. How many of you are like, I don't care? Okay. All right. Phoenix Rising. All right. Brand new stadium drops in May. 10,000 seats. Be there. All right. Let's take this farther, because I know for some of you, you're like, I don't care about sports. I care about food. I'm a foodie. Some of you care about like ranking things when it comes to gadgets and tech and cars and consumer reports. Can we just bring out, because I think last week Joel did something when he talked about Haagen-Dazs, and then he went to Haagen-Dazs, and I was watching online, and I put the phone down, and I went straight for some ice cream, and I came back. I just thought, let's actually rank ice cream. So what I need is one person who would be willing to come up and be the tester for us all. One person. Anyone over here? Okay, right there. You. Oh, okay, you stood up. I'm sorry. It's okay. You can go. You come. It's okay. Sorry. Awesome. There you go. You got cheery. I like it. You can come up through this right up here. Awesome. Well done. Well done. Okay, so what we have here is 4 different ice creams because I think Haagen-Dazs is good. I just don't think it's number 1. Now, what's your name?
Brittany.
Brittany, where are you from?
Been here like you, a year and a half, originally from Vegas.
Oh, nice. From desert to desert. You're welcome here. Awesome. Okay, so here's what we got. We got Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey. We've got Private Selection, which is straight, I think, from Fry's or Ralph's or a store brand. We've got Haagen-Dazs, which is not Hebrew. And then we've got Grater's Ice Cream, which is straight from the Midwest. So, okay, you now, with one spoon, you get to try them all, and then you have to rank them.
Okay.
So real quick. All right. Yes. No, it's not timed. It's like dun 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 dun. Oh yeah, the textures. Man, you are into this. If you're watching online, she's trying Chunky Monkey right now, straight from Vermont. Oh, you are intense right there. Okay, all right. We don't have a chaser. I don't have like a lime to put. You're straight to Private Selection. There you go. Okay, all right. This is the coffee flavored. It's not your number 2 that you would usually want to go to, but for this, enjoy. Wow, surprised. She gave a little, Awesome. Surprising, okay. Not sure, good or bad? Good, oh wow. Haagen-Dazs. Oh, yes, I like that. Sorry, Joel. Oh, what is greater than Grater's? Nothing. Oh, you went straight for the chocolate chunk. You're my kind of person, friend.
We have to have all the
That's right.
to judge it, correct?
That's correctly. Oh. Okay, you got to rank them. Okay, what's number 4? Number 4. Haagen-Dazs, number 4. A story with a point. Number 4. Okay, number 3. That was a big piece of chocolate. Oh, sorry, Ben & Jerry's. Stay the East Coast. Wow. Private Selection or Grater's? Which one is greater? It's a little witness tampering. Yeah, which one's the best? Leading the...
With store brand will save you money.
Wow, that's amazing. Well done. Okay, you can take it. You can take it. You can enjoy it on the road. Or you can... Yeah, while I'm teaching. Yes, we give things away here. If you want the drum kit, take that too. The TV, take it. It's yours. Awesome. Okay. Now, why do I do this? Because what I want you to see is what we're going to look at is a story that we've totally missed the point. The story really deals with how we rank things and how we rank the commands. Now, to understand this, I got to bring you right back to the very beginning. The first 5 books of the Bible are known as the Torah. And inside the Torah, there are 613 commandments. And those commandments are known as mitzvot, or also known as sacred deeds. Or, there we go. And those sacred deeds are literally how we walk in step and in tune and in harmony with God. Now, here's the thing. Rabbis for thousands of years have been trying to figure out, well, what's the most important? What's the most important mitzvot? Of all the 613, almost looking like they are like college basketball teams, we got to rank them. And what we began to realize was that there were these rabbis who began to kind of grow in prominence. And they had schools of Talmudim, schools of disciples. And what they would do is they would teach their interpretation, their ranking of the commandments. The rabbis, there were 2 between 50 years before the days of Jesus, Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai. And they would have massive debates. People would come out from all over to listen to these 2 debate what are the greatest commandments. But the crazy thing is these 2 actually didn't have the same belief. See, they agreed on what was the number one greatest commandment, which comes from Deuteronomy, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. But here's where it got different. Rabbi Hillel believed that the second greatest commandment was love your neighbor as yourself, straight from the book of Leviticus. But Rabbi Shammai had a different thought. He believed the second greatest commandment was to be holy as God is holy. So you have these two rabbis, had all of these disciples, their own schools of teaching how to interpret the Torah. And 50 years before the days of Jesus, this is what they are teaching. One saying, love God, love your neighbor. The other one saying, love God and be holy, which back in those days meant be clean. Don't be considered unclean. Don't be around anything that's dead. Don't be around anything that's bleeding. Don't be unclean, because if you're considered unclean, you'd have to go back to the temple, make sacrifices, and go through an entire cleansing process, which is amazing. Because on one occasion, an expert in the law, this is not a lawyer, this is an expert in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, Rabbi, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Now, he's not asking, how do I get from this life to eternity? What he's asking, when you ask a rabbi, how do I inherit eternal life? It's literally asking, how do I live with God in the here and now? How do I live attuned to the way of God? And what's amazing is Jesus answers the question with the question, because that's what rabbis do. He goes, well, what is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? How do you read it? What's he asking? How do you read it? You as the expert of the law, how do you interpret it? You as the expert of the law, how do you rank them? Or better said, who do you side with? Who do you side with, Hillel or Shammai? Who do you side with? The man responds, he answers, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. So he's correct with number one. And then look at the next line, and love your neighbor as yourself. So who does he side with, Hillel or Shammai? Hillel, well done, you're listening. Now, here's what it says, continues on. Look what Jesus says, you have answered correctly. Now, whenever you would have a conversation with a rabbi, and if you answered incorrectly, the rabbi would literally slam his fist on the desk and he would say, you have abolished the Torah, which is scary. But like if you answer correctly, the rabbi would say, you have answered correctly. You have actually fulfilled the Torah. And look what he says. Jesus replied, do this and you will live. But the man, the expert in the law, wanted to justify himself because he's in front of all these people. He simply asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? It's a good question. I mean, when you think about the word neighbor, doesn't this guy just come to mind? Just the greatest neighbor of all time, taking off his shoes, taking off his sweater, putting on a sweater, just interacting with everyone. See, neighbor in the original language Hebrew is Riah, which represented someone from your tribe or your family. We think about neighbor as being just someone who lives on our street, but this was about if you were from the tribe of Judah and you came in contact with someone from the tribe of Gad, even though you were both Hebrew people, he wasn't your neighbor. He's from a different tribe. He's from a different family. Their understanding of neighbor was very, very insulated. And so what's amazing is this expert of the law really wants to challenge Jesus to kind of say, hey, what's your understanding of neighbor? And so Jesus, in reply, said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. Now that's a 17-mile walk. And you come from Jerusalem down to Jericho, which is like one of the lowest places on the planet. Like the Dead Sea is around there, lowest point on earth. So 17-mile, it's a dangerous, dangerous walk. Look what it says. He's attacked by robbers. They strip him of his clothes. They beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. So you can just imagine, no clothes, stripped, beaten, bloodied. He's been left half dead. He's had all of his possessions taken from him. And all of these listeners, these religious elites are listening. And all of a sudden Jesus says, a priest. A priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. Now, what's amazing is most priests lived in Jericho. They'd work in Jerusalem for a week, then they go home for a week, then they come back to work in Jerusalem at the temple, doing their sacrifices, leading services. This is what a priest did. And the word priest in Latin comes from this word pontifex, and pon means bridge, and tefex can be translated as maker. The original idea of a priest was to be bridge makers from God to us. Now, I lived in Illinois for a number of years, and then I moved here. I wasn't really familiar with hiking. And I started to hike, and all of a sudden I realized something, because when I think about the story of the Good Samaritan and of this priest like passing by on the other side, I think I always thought of these like C+ Christian movies where like someone would be driving and they'd see someone whose car was kind of on the side of the road. And the priest would drive by in his Lincoln and literally look out the window and be like, I'm sorry, I don't have enough time. But if you've ever hiked Camelback Mountain, which don't ever do it, don't fall into that trap. Those trails are narrow. Those trails are narrow. I mean, you literally, this is the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's narrow and it's windy. This is not like a man who is beaten, bloodied, left to die. It's not like the priest could be like, I didn't see you. No. Literally, this priest is stepping over. Like I have to understand is that every one of us, if we're actually living well around our neighbors, we're coming in contact with people who've experienced profound brokenness, pain, struggle, abuse. And all of a sudden, we have a choice of what we're going to do in this moment, depending on how we rank and understand God's commandments. And this priest, I imagine, when he sees this man, is asking certain questions. Like, is this person worth the shame I will endure? If I help this person, I now, as a clean, holy priest, will be considered unclean because he's bleeding. And I won't be able to go home. I'll have to return back to the temple and go through the whole cleansing process. Not only is it a shame, but is this person worth the mocking I will endure? Because now all the other priests are like, look at this guy, unclean Harry over here. This guy's supposed to be a priest, and look at he's unclean. Like, is this person worth having to go back to Jerusalem and be unclean? Maybe the real question is, when this priest sees this person left to die, is this person worth it? Is this person worth it? And every day we are confronted with this. Is this person worth it in the marketplace? Is this person worth it in our school? Is this person worth it who I just don't agree with? Is this person worth it? Second character, so too a Levite. And a Levite was someone who led worship in the temple. They also did temple security, which is just awesome. When he came to the place and saw him, two passed by on the other side. Now, Levite, they work for the priest. And a Levite would follow the priest home. Most Levites also lived in Jericho. So the Levite's following the priest. He's seen what the priest has done, stepped over. And the Levite has a whole bunch of questions that are going through his mind. If my boss stepped over, then I probably should too. And if I don't do the same, what am I saying about my boss? I can't disrespect my boss. See, so many kids are watching their parents. And they're watching their parents, and they're seeing how their parents interact with the pain and the brokenness and the struggle in the world. And now it leaves these kids who are going, I'm studying the way of Jesus, but sometimes parents aren't actually doing the harder right. So if I actually do something or love or forgive, what is that gonna say about my parents? Or what if I'm a mentee and I've got a mentor and my mentor is not gonna do the harder right, but I do? What's that gonna say about my mentor? Or the religious leaders, and I'm just a congregant, but I gotta do, what is it gonna say? And so often, many people get in their head and they don't want to actually throw shade or shame to the person that's ahead of them, supposedly in their faith. So what do? They back up and go to the sidelines. That's what the Levite did. So Jesus goes, third story. third character. I guarantee you, every person listening is going, he's gonna say Pharisee, because the Pharisees were the right ones. But Jesus goes, but a Samaritan. And a Samaritan was the most racist term in that day. The Jews hated Samaritans. They hated them with a passion. And Jesus just flips the script and goes, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. That's amazing, is the priest who has all of this like Torah training, the Levite, all of this Torah training, the Samaritan would never be allowed into a synagogue to learn the Torah. The priest beginning to ask all these questions about ranking, the Levite, all of these thoughts about the boss and ranking, and the Samaritan just sees the pain. And the scripture says, took pity on him. I love this word. It's my favorite word in the Greek language, pity. It's the word splachna. Let me hear you say splachna. It's so fun to say. Just say it sometime when you like wake up in the morning. It literally means this, compassion from your bowels. It's fantastic. I was a film major for many, many years in college, and I had some friends who were leading a junior high ministry in California. The junior high camp winter retreat speaker bailed, and it was 2 weeks out, and they needed a teacher, and I think they called a ton of people, and obviously they couldn't find someone, so I got a call. And I was like, guys, I'm a film major. I've never preached before. I'm like, yeah, but we think you have something to say. I'm like, really? I can say whatever I want. They're like, yeah, as long as it's from the Bible. I'm like, anything. Yeah, as long as it's from the Bible. Awesome, I'm in. The first message I ever give, I show up to this camp that's up in the mountains, 250 junior high students, and I come in with a trash can, a Bible, and a half-gallon thing of milk. Set the trash can down. And I'm teaching just drinking milk. And if you don't know this about milk, is that your body can't handle a half gallon of milk in 30 minutes. And if you try to do this, they call it the milk challenge, it's going to come out of you. And so I'm just teaching, and I'm teaching about compassion, and I'm teaching about grace, how it was never meant just to stay inside you, that it literally has to come out of you. Again, I'm a film major. I'm not going to Bible college to learn how to preach. This is a terrible sermon. But I'm drinking, and then all of a sudden I'm like, guys, here's the thing. Here's the thing about splachna. It's gotta come out of you. And I vomit into a trash can. And then 7 junior high girls have the epic Sandlot moment, and they run up on stage and they puke in the trash can. And I'm like, that's right, it can't stay inside you. I don't know why they let me teach the next morning. And I also found out I was lactose intolerant, which was just terrible. I tell you this because this is the idea. Splachna was this Samaritan felt it. There was something when you saw planes crash into the World Trade Center, into the towers on 9/11, that something inside you was like, that's not okay, that's not right. You felt it. Too often we just get so desensitized to see the brokenness and the pain of our world that we can just step over it. But somehow the Samaritan saw it and just felt it. Look what it says. He didn't just feel it. He didn't just see it. Look what it says. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. So something that costs something. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. I mean, just think about this. It's sometimes hard for us to imagine ourselves into this story. But if you found yourself in Israel and Palestine, and those two nations are at war, they can't stand one another. Just imagine if an Israeli had been beaten, left half dead, and all of a sudden a Palestinian comes, pours out oil, pours out wine, puts an Israeli onto a donkey and walks him into downtown Jerusalem. Don't you think all these Israelis would be like, what are you doing? Did you do this? Did you do this? This was not some just like easy thing. Jesus is trying to help you see that this Samaritan who is not taught Torah, who didn't rank 613, felt and saw and did something about it and even put himself and his reputation at risk. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. The next day, he even comes back and goes, hey, add it to my tab. Then he says this, look after him. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you have. And after a great story, a rabbi always asks a question. And Jesus says, which? Which of these 3 do you think was a riah, a neighbor, to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? He's looking at the expert of the law, and he's like, which one? And look what the man's response is. The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. He can't even say the Samaritan. That's how much he can't stand that person. He can't stand the idea that a Samaritan would be the hero in the story. And he goes, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus so beautifully says, go and do likewise. Go and do likewise. You know what's so beautiful about the way of Jesus and the gospel? Is Jesus takes a derogatory word and makes it synonymous with good. A word that was just filled with prejudice and racism, Samaritan. Now when we say it, we always say good Samaritan. This is what the gospel does. But the parable of the Good Samaritan is not about time. The parable of the Good Samaritan is Jesus expanding the idea of loving your neighbor to mean loving the person that you hate. Can you love that person? Can you love the person who's wounded you? Can you love the person who's wronged you? Can you love the person you can't stand? Can you love the person you hate? Can you love the Green Bay Packers? You know what I mean? Like, can you love people you can't stand? And I think for many of us, we can say that until we see it on Facebook. We can say it until we see it on the news. I think we can say it and we can sing it until we see it on our street or in our kids' school. Our world is more divided than ever. I don't need to tell you that. In 2016, I was leading a church in Chicagoland, and I just had this conversation with a dear friend and mentor, Bob Goff, and Bob was just talking about how we need to love everyone always. And he's like, if you do that, then you're off the hook. And I was like, that's genius. And I just started to see the parables, and I saw what Jesus was teaching. And I realized it's so hard for us to do that. So we started this whole series. In the midst of like this political kind of unique time, we started making yard signs that we put up that just said, love everyone always. And we're like, this is what we're gonna be about. And you can be someone who thinks differently, votes differently, whatever. We're gonna do as Jesus says. And we're gonna love everyone always. And I just love when Bob said that, love everyone always. And I think we like the idea of this. And then Jesus so kindly brings people into our place, into our life, into our sphere. And then we have to actually go, will we do what he has told us to do? Or will we be more like the priest or the Levite or the Samaritan? There's 3 ways that I think prevent us from like actually truly loving everyone always. The first one is ranking the commands. I think a lot of you in this room or watching online, you'd say, yeah, number 1, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. Number 2, love your neighbor as yourself until the problem's in front of you. Then sometimes we rank the commands where we go, love God, I'm gonna love you, God, I'm gonna love you, God, but I'm gonna stay safe at all costs. Or my second greatest commandment is not love God with all your heart, not love your neighbor, but literally like protect my image at all costs. Or not be seen around that person. Or not engage that because of what other people might say. we all rank our commands. The question we have to ask is our ranking of the commands in true alignment with Jesus' teachings? Love God, love your neighbor, love everyone always. Number 2, rationalizing the commands. I'm so good at this. I mean, it's so good for me to see the problem and be like, I would love you, but you did this. I would actually love you, but what are you gonna do for me? And you know what rationalize are, right? It's just rational lies. And this is what we do. We just Jedi mind trick our brain to go, I think I'm actually holier or better or doing the right thing by literally being the priest and Levite today than actually engaging with what Jesus teaches us. We rationalize. If I do this, then, what's she gonna think? If I do this, what are they gonna think? If I do this, why are we caring so much about what other people would think? If Jesus cared about his reputation, he would have never left heaven. He came to teach us how to love. Third, what prevents us from loving everyone always? Many of us, we just reserve the commands for a few. It's like we will love every person who looks, acts, votes, thinks like us always. But somebody outside our family or outside our tribe or outside our belief system or outside what we feel comfortable with, we can now hold our love to ourselves. And this is what Jesus is absolutely trying to obliterate. That we've got to be the kind of people who go above and beyond to love everyone always. And this is what Jesus has been teaching me. A few years ago, I happened to be in Palestine. And I've gone there 4 or 5 times trying to do some peacemaking work. And it was super late at night, and I'm in Bethlehem, which is Palestinian territory, and I'm staying in the Intercontinental Hotel, and the Wi-Fi's out. And I just wanted to connect with my family back home. And I saw across the street was a hookah lounge, which I'd never been to a hookah lounge, but they had free Wi-Fi. And so I thought to myself, I'll just go stand outside, steal free Wi-Fi to connect with my family. So I'm walking across, it's 1:30 in the morning, and out of the corner of my eye, I see 4 Palestinian soldiers in fatigues with massive guns. I look over, and about a 3-iron away, there's an Israeli soldier in the security wall barrier looking down in a tower with a gun at those soldiers. And I feel God whisper, go talk to those soldiers. Which I respond back to God, give me free Wi-Fi. And I feel him just saying, go talk to them. My friends, I wanted to rationalize. Like, this isn't gonna go anywhere. They don't wanna talk to me. I really wanted to kind of reserve God's love in that moment. They're not like me. They don't believe what I believe. They don't look like me. I wanted to rank the laws in that moment. I don't want to engage with them. I want to stay safe. This looks violent. This is not smart. I just felt God say, please. So I walk up to them, which I don't know how to start a conversation. I'm awkward as it is. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, beautiful night here in Bethlehem. I was like, what's your names? They share their names with me. They ask me what my name is. I'm like, my name's Steve. They're like, Steve? Like my favorite US actor. And I'm like, who's that? Steven Seagal. And literally out of my mouth, I said, God can use all things for good. And we start having this conversation. And I'm like, do you guys live in Bethlehem? They're like, no, we live in Balata. And I was like, what? You live in Balata? I'm going to Balata on Thursday. I'm bringing a whole team from California there. Balata is a UN refugee camp where 35,000 people live in 1.3 square miles. You literally have to walk like this between the buildings. I'm like, you live there? Would you give us a tour? They're like, yeah, I would love to. I'm like, we're gonna show up at this time at the city gate. Would you let us in? Yeah. Okay, great. Just don't bring your guns. They're like, okay, cool. So all of a sudden they give us a tour. We get to the end of the tour. We're back at the city gate. I look at these guys. I'm like, hey, have you ever been over there? They're like, what's that? It's a little chapel. No. And remember, these are Palestinian soldiers, non-practicing Muslim Arabs. And I'm like, you ever been there? No. You want to go? Okay. I'm like, there's a well in there. They're like, really? So I walk them into this chapel and be like walking on the ground floor, and then there's stairways down to this basement. Inside this basement is this massive well that brings up water that's like far better than anything Dasani could ever make. And inside this well, as I'm pulling up water, I'm telling these soldiers and these people from California that I've brought that Jesus came to this exact well. In John chapter 4, if you study the Gospels, it said Jesus had to go to Samaria, but here's the thing, no rabbi would go to Samaria, but Jesus would. Jesus had to. Why? Because he, splachna, had that passion. He comes to a well and he finds himself talking to a woman. He's got all these questions. And Jesus begins to unpack her greatest desire, her greatest longing, her greatest need. And so in this moment, I'm just doing this little teach. In a moment of conflict around us, I just began to say, what do you desire? And in English, we'd call it peace. In Hebrew, we'd call it shalom. In Arabic, they'd say salam. And what's so amazing is in John chapter 4, Jesus is saying, I'm the true living peace. Whoever tastes and drinks of me will experience true shalom. And as I'm pulling up water, I just said, does anybody want that kind of peace? Anybody need that? The first person to come forward is one of the Palestinian soldiers. And I'm like, what? He's like, I need that. And I'm like, well, did you understand what I'm saying? This is like about Jesus, like a man who came for you, died on a cross for you. Like, he's like, I don't have that. I want that. Next couple people come forward are from California, they need Jesus. And then a whole bunch of the other couple Palestinian soldiers come forward, and we just have this amazing time of worship and prayer. And the only redemptive thing for me about Facebook is that I still get to stay in contact with these soldiers. And as I back it all up, I hate to say it, but I saw fatigues, I saw guns, I saw different. And Jesus saw heaven expanding. See, what's amazing is the problem in Gilbert, the problem in the valley, the problems in our state, the problems in our school are right in front of us. And the question is, who will we be? Who will we be, church? Will we be more like priests who've been called to be bridge makers, but instead we are just bridging ourselves over the problem and continuing on? Will we be like the Levites who can worship in a room on Sundays and sing about God's love, but when the problem is before us, step over and walk away because of how we rank the laws? Or will we see as God sees, feel as God feels, roll up our sleeves and actually engage? Friends, can you love the person you can't stand? Can you love the person you hate? And I know you might be sitting here going, Steve, you don't understand. I got people in my life that I don't have any people in my life that I hate. Then I'd probably say your life is too safe. Because our grace, our love, our peace, our freedom, our transformation should be running up and rubbing up with people who don't actually like it, and who mock us, and who say things about us, and hurl insults at us, and aren't very kind to us. And we go, yeah, they did the same thing to my Lord and my Savior, and I'm gonna continue to love, because I am called to love everyone always. What's amazing is I wanna lead us in a time of communion. If you're online, maybe you have the bread, maybe you have some juice beside you. If you're in this room, I'm gonna ask that you would pull this out. If you have not received one, just raise your hand. Our ushers would love to give you one. And they'll come down and they'll make sure that you have this. Just be very, very careful because these are tricky. Okay, make sure that you've got the bread on top. And in a moment, I'm actually gonna do something different. Typically, whenever I lead people in receiving communion, I kind of walk you through the process and we all take it together. But I think the team has put together this amazing reflective song. And this week I just have felt felt just overwhelmed when I think about the book of Romans, when Paul, who is a murderer, Paul, who is a blasphemer, Paul, who is filled with pride, Jesus still came after him. And Paul writes in Romans 5 and Philippians 3, he says, even when I was an enemy of Christ, even when I was an enemy of heaven, and whenever I think about communion, I gotta start with the place, I was once against you. I was once against you. Going my own way, and I was spiritually robbed. Spiritually dead. And so incredibly, God, you came and you gave, and you poured oil, anointed me, you poured out your blood, wine, you lifted me up, and you took someone who was going his own way, and you made me good. Nothing I did, all because of the gospel. And what's amazing is when you find yourself experiencing that kind of love that you know I didn't deserve, God of all creation running after you. But the idea is that it would never just stay with us. Even when we were enemies, he came after us. And what I want you to think about, is there anybody in your life that you have seen as a rival, as an enemy? Is there anyone in your life that if their problem was right before you, you would say, I have every reason not to help them. I will not help them. I will not love them. I will not do that. I will be okay with being a priest and a Levite. And I think we just gotta be honest about that. I think we gotta be real about that and say, man, God, I'm so grateful you didn't do that for me. You didn't have that kind of spirit towards me. So I might need, in this moment, as the song is being sung over us, to confess that. I don't wanna help. Maybe for some of us, we just have to repent. I haven't wanted to help. Forgive me, God. Forgive me for taking this cup and this bread and this juice and this life and just holding it to myself and choosing not to love everyone always. Or maybe as this song is being sung, you just have to be reminded of your first love. So what I'm gonna invite you to do is at your own time. And Diana's singing this song. There's gonna be lines in this, lyrics in this. And I just want you to really focus on God loving you. And if he loved you, why would he love you? Because you are good in his eyes, and he's inviting you to go and do likewise. Maybe just ask yourself, what's preventing you? Maybe you are rationalizing. Maybe you are just kind of holding back that love for just certain people. Or maybe you've just ranked the laws to protect and preserve you. But love is messy. Love requires us actually following in the way of Jesus. And so God, I just come before you right now. I pray that as we open and we hold the bread in one hand, we open and we hold the cup in another, we would remember you found yourself seated with someone who was doubting you, someone who would deny you, someone who would betray you, and you still pursued them because you taught us how to love everyone always. And God, I'm asking that this would be a space of honesty, humility, and we'd be really able to look at our own life and say, there's people in my life that I've chosen to withhold love from, to preserve me. Break us, God. Break us for what breaks your heart. God, I'm praying that in this moment that we wouldn't just rush to a moment to just sing. We would just sit in the reality that we were enemies of you and you came after us and you made us good. And that there are enemies of us in this world, but you actually believe that through you, your spirit in us, we can help this person's life change forever. Let this be a church not of priests and Levites, but let this be a church of Samaritans who love everyone always. Let us receive communion when we are ready, and let us sing our hearts out to you. Lead us, God, in this time. And everyone said, amen.
I'm returning to the sacred place, just an altar and a flame. Love is found here in our sacred space. I hear your voice, I see your face. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still mine. There's a table just for you and me. Break the bread and pour the wine. Perfect union, nothing in between. I am yours and you are mine. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. My only one. It's still you, Jesus. Just you and me. I feel my heart beating out of my chest. I wanna stay forever like this. May the flame of my heart always be lit. we agree with this truth. We agree with that desire. Our prayer is that you would go out this week and not chase the idols of this world, but only chase your first love, Jesus. We'll see you next week.